So in 1994, this was quite a while ago, but there was an article in the New York Times that Dr. Jack Henningfield and Neil Benowitz, who were experts in the field of sort of drug research, basically they were at the University of California, San Francisco. They ranked six substances based on five what they called problem areas, and these include, for example, withdrawal severity. And animal and human experiments really showed pretty clearly that alcohol was by far the worst in terms of the severity of the withdrawal. In fact, it's deadly. In fact, if you end up in Hooper detox, they don't actually not give you alcohol. They give you alcohol because too rapid a withdrawal could lead to all sorts of life-threatening circumstances, including seizures. In terms of reinforcement effects, which is how likely will you go back and use it again? How reinforcing is the drug? If you have to do this to get the drug, how likely are you to do that again? To get more of the drug? Well, cocaine sort of leads the pack there. In terms of tolerance, in terms of needing more to obtain the same effect, and ramping up the dose, heroin, opioids, by far, are the worst. In terms of dependence, nicotine, by far the worst. Nicotine, a legal drug, right, is like the worst for dependence, particularly if young people start earlier, as this frontal lobe region is developing. It'll develop around the need to always have significantly more of the drug and to be driven by cues that are associated with the consumption of a cigarette. And in terms of intoxication, Henningfield and Benowitz also talked about alcohol. And you'll note that alcohol is a legal drug. And nicotine is a legal drug. For the longest time, nicotine, the legal age was pretty low. It was 18 in comparison to, for example, alcohol, which is at 21. But there's a lot of illicit substances that you don't see on this list, right? You don't see marijuana at all. You don't see, LSD or mushrooms, right? You don't see, a lot of these illicit substances that, and the fact that, nicotine, for example, can hook, more young people than so many other drugs. What's going on here? Well, clearly we're not just talking about research and what research tells us about drug actions, effects, and consequences. There are other factors that are playing a significant role. For example, if you examine the columns at the U.S. Capitol building, you'll see tobacco leaves, basically carved into those columns. Now, in let's see, 2007, there was a new system that was developed by David Nutt, who was the very much involved in drug research and policy in the UK. And his team ranked drugs on the basis of harm caused to both the user and to others. And that placed alcohol as the most harmful drug by far, above heroin and crack cocaine. This scale was developed by drug experts, led again by Professor David Nutt of Imperial College London, and it was published in The Lancet. So clearly the fact that it is legal drugs that sort of lead the pack to some extent on some of these significant risks associated with drug use and the development of drug use disorders suggests that there's a lot more going on here than just research in terms of determining drug policy. We're going to see that racism plays a pretty significant role, as does clearly with the tobacco leaves carved into the columns of the Capitol, money, and large corporate interests.